It is likely one of the most widely viewed images that is going to emerge from Canada all year: an emaciated polar bear digging through garbage that was quick-landed around the world as proof of the ecological horrors of climate change. Evan Catherine McKenna, Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, wrote in a tweet, "This is what climate change looks like, but ask the people who actually spend their time around polar bears, Arctic biologists and the Inuit, and it quickly emerges that all is not what it seems." The bear might have been injured or diseased. The video shows what appears to be an old male in declining health, but clear clinical signs of starvation aren't obvious, e.g. convulsions, said longtime polar bear biologist Andrew Dereker in an email. In a series of tweets, Arctic wildlife biologist Jeff Higdon similarly speculated that the animal could be suffering from an aggressive form of cancer. "That bear is starving, but in my opinion it's not starving because the ice suddenly disappeared and it could no longer hunt seals," he wrote, noting that bears routinely survive long stretches of ice-free water during the summer. "It's far more likely that it is starving due to health issues," he added. However, noted University of Alberta polar bear researcher Ian Sterling disputed that it was an older bear, pointing out the lack of scarring around the animal's neck. In an email, Sterling added that it's impossible to know for sure what caused the bear's emaciation, but it is what a starving bear would look like regardless of the cause. The bear lives in an area where populations are doing well. Climate change is definitely very bad for the future of polar bears. As Sterling said, more instances of starvation will be inevitable if polar bears don't have ice to use as a hunting platform, but for the time being, disappearing ice is having varied effects on Canadian polar bears. Depending on where they live, some bears are getting utterly decimated, while others are thriving. Notably, the emaciated polar bear quite likely lives in an area where polar bears are doing rather well. According to data collected by the federal government, polar bears along the entire west coast of Baffin Island are stable. On the southeastern side of the island around the Nunavut capital of Iqaluit, polar bears have even experienced a likely increase. It's only on the island's northeastern corner, in a management area that meets Greenland, that polar bears are suspected to be in decline. Emaciated polar bears are not a new thing. A caribou or a moose is never allowed to get this skinny long before it gets close to starvation. A predator has usually turned them into a meal. But if a polar bear doesn't drown or get shot, it's most likely going to end up looking like the bear in the photo. Polar bears, they don't have natural enemies, so when they die, it's of starvation, Stephen Amstrip, chief scientist at Polar Bears International, said in 2015. And, like many other bears, such as the grizzly, polar bears sometimes go through dramatic cycles of feast and famine. Bears can respond to improved conditions. "We've followed bears that went from wrecks to obese over a few months," said Dereker. Nico Inuarak lives in Pond Inlet, and comes from a family of hunters and guides. He said Hisher Charlie was not baffled to see a polar bear in that state and had seen it often before. In fact, the elder Inuarak had once spotted two polar bears together, one very healthy and the other bear showing the same behavior as in the video footage, said Nico by email. "I was reminded of some of the bears I took pictures of on September 4, 16. No ice with lots of black flies this time of the year. Seals aren't their only food." Pic.twitter.com Mach7 Outker, Gordy Kidlapik at Ingatak, December 8, 2017. Activists captured these photos. These images aren't the work of a scientist, an impartial documentarian, or even a concerned bystander. They are part of a very calculated public relations exercise by Sea Legacy, an organization whose stated purpose is to capture photos that drive powerful conservation wins. The group dispatched 5 expeditions in 2017, all with the goal to trigger public and policy support for sustainable ocean solutions. Terry Odla is a past president of Inuit Taperiit Kanatami, an advocacy association representing all Canadian Inuit. In a Sunday tweet, he called the photos a stunt that represented a complete disservice to climate change science. Sea Legacy's social media posts about the bear also failed to mention that the images were taken in August, when ice cover naturally disappears from many polar bear habitats. Note: an earlier version of this story incorrectly reported that Odla is the current president of ITK. As corrected, he is the past president. Not a single dollar donated will go to save a single polar bear or help the Arctic. All about marketing, to self-perpetuate own orgs. https://t.co/onptf8z1u6, Madeline Redfern at Madanik, December 10, 2017. Sea Legacy itself doesn't know why the bear is starving. In an Instagram post, Sea Legacy co-founder Christina Mittermeier called the bear the face of climate change. Nevertheless, she acknowledged, "We don't know what caused this animal to starve. In an interview with the Washington Post, Sea Legacy's Paul Nicklin was similarly reported as having no definitive proof that the bear's condition was connected to climate change. Why he was dying, I don't know, said Nicklin. As Higdon noted, Sea Legacy should have contacted a Nunavut conservation officer to euthanize the bear and submitted Sea for a necropsy to determine the definitive cause of its ill health. The narrative of the story might have turned out quite different if they had, he wrote. This isn't how climate change works. Critics have noted an obvious flaw with pointing to a starving bear as the face of climate change. By the same logic, Canada's many healthy polar bears could similarly be used as mascots for climate change denial. Arguing climate change is real because of a video of one sick bear is like claiming that it is a hoax because yesterday it snowed in southern Texas, read a tweet by Université de Sherbrooke biologist Marco Feste-Bianchit. This is why, when scientists conclude that Earth is warming or polar bears are in danger, they don't use anecdotal information. Rather, they base their forecasts on reams of data collected over years. Dereker noted that Baffin Island polar bear populations are expected to fall off a cliff in the coming years, but it will take careful population monitoring to know for sure. As a scientist, we look for population level changes. This video is at the individual level, he wrote. Of course, if this situation was observed over many bears, the interpretation may change. Twitter Tristine Opper, email thopper@nationalpost.com.